related to the historical traumas caused because of colonization. We will begin this evening with the traditional practice of recognizing and expressing gratitude for our shared spaces through a land acknowledgement. As this event is virtual and we're not all gathered in the same space or even within the same country, we recognize that the following land acknowledgement might not be for the territory that you are currently on. If this is the case, please take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory you are on, current treaty holders, and the Indigenous people who have been its historical caretakers. As members of the York University community, we recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Tkaronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. That dish has 3 simple teachings. First, take no more than your share. Second, make sure there's enough food to go around for everybody. And third, don't foul the dish or take the dish. We say these words to acknowledge the territory we gather on and the history of the land and the people who've come before us. Whether this is the first time you've heard it, or if you're familiar with it, we encourage you to learn more about the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada. We also extend to everyone an invitation to reflect on the land acknowledgement's message of sharing, caring, and joint responsibility, which are more important than ever as we continue our efforts towards cross-cultural learning and international understanding.
We are grateful for the support that the Grounded Project and the creation of this film has received. Before we begin, we would like to take this opportunity to share with you greetings from the York University President, Dr. Rhonda Linton.
Good evening to all Canadian and Costa Rican colleagues, and a good day to partners and colleagues joining us from other parts of the world. It is a great pleasure to have the opportunity to welcome you all to the screening of More Than Migrants, which tells the stories of 9 Nicaraguan migrants striving to make new lives for themselves and their families in Costa Rica. This is the first episode in the Grounded Project's documentary film series, which aims to bring awareness to issues concerning environmental sustainability, biodiversity, conservation, health, and human well-being in Costa Rica. The Grounded Project is a collaborative initiative undertaken by the Las Nubes team from the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change and the Faculty of Health, and an excellent example of York's continuing commitment to advancing sustainability, equity, social justice, and community engagement. I would like to congratulate everyone involved in the Grounded Project, and especially Dr. Felipe Montoya, the Las Nubes Director at the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change, and also the Director of the More Than Migrants film, as well as the teams at the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change and on-site in Costa Rica. Dr. Mathieu Poirier, academic lead for the film and assistant professor in the Global Health Program at the Faculty of Health, and the team and program staff from the Faculty of Health and the team from York University Libraries. I would also like to commend the 4 Global Health Program students who contributed to the project as part of their remote international practica, and express my appreciation to our Costa Rican colleagues and community partners, including Dr. Douglas Barraza from UTN, as well as the many UTN faculty and students who have donated their time, passion, and energy to this project. To the Nicaraguan migrants featured in the film, thank you so much for trusting us with your stories. Finally, thank you all for joining us today. Gracias, merci, miigwech.
Thank you, President Lenton. As this project bridges communities in Costa Rica and Canada, we are pleased to share with you a message from the Canadian Ambassador James K. Hill and his recorded greetings from the Embassy of Canada in Costa Rica, Honduras, and Nicaragua.
Hello everyone. I am pleased to have been asked by York University's Ecocampus, Las Nubes, to help introduce the documentary More Than Migrants. The documentary is part of a series of short docs called Grounded, filmed in rural Costa Rica on issues around environmental sustainability, biodiversity conservation, health, and human well-being. These are all concepts that resonate well with the Embassy of Canada and our own efforts to collaborate with the government of Costa Rica, educational institutes, and civil society. Canada and Costa Rica have a long-standing history of cooperation at the United Nations, at the Organization of American States, and now also at the OECD, and in many other fora where we share goals related to gender equality, climate action, and the promotion of human rights. And this, of course, includes the rights of the most vulnerable, girls and boys, women, members of the LGBTQ community, and migrants. As we know, there are a large number of migrants in Costa Rica, especially from neighboring Nicaragua. Many of these individuals have fled from the ongoing political and human rights crisis, trying to find employment, trying to find safety, trying to simply build a new life. This is an issue of importance to Canada. Over the past several years, the Embassy has worked closely with the International Organization for Migration, IOM, and UNHCR to fund projects related to Nicaragua migrants in Costa Rica. One of the largest projects was support to the mobile hospital at the northern border to provide PPE and health and sanitation programming during the pandemic. As we can all imagine, the COVID-19 situation has only made life even more difficult for the thousands of migrants in Central America. The documentary today will share some of the stories of a migrant experience in Costa Rica, shedding light on this important issue, building and strengthening our compassion, respect, and understanding for people in our communities. Perhaps even inspiring new ways for Canadian and Costa Rican institutions, NGOs, and governments to address this important topic. Congratulations to Las Nubes, York University, and to all the Canadians and Costa Ricans that worked on this project. And a special thank you to the Nicaraguans who shared their stories, helping us to recognize and value their diverse experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Hill. We also want to welcome Dr. Alice Hovorka, Dean of the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change at York University, who has both championed and supported this project since the beginning. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Buenos noches. I am so proud to be here as the Dean of the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change, and especially proud to support this first Grounded documentary entitled More Than Migrants. This is coming to you from the Love Chair in Neotropical Conservation, Dr. Felipe Montoya, in collaboration with Ana Maria Martinez, the Associate Director of Las Nubes Ecocampus and the Las Nubes Project. And it's in collaboration with our colleagues at the Faculty of Health, Matthew Poiré, as well as Julie Hard. Thank you so much for this opportunity to say thank you for this film, which brings to all of us the incredibly powerful narratives that you deliver with such sensitivity, really powerful narratives that bring us into the lives and the livelihoods and the lived experiences of Nicaraguan migrants in Costa Rica. These are stories that really connect with us in terms of our understanding of what people go through to ensure that their families and their communities are supported, that they are treated in just and sustainable ways, and that we're all working together for a better future. I also want to say that this documentary series offers an opportunity to extend what we do at the Las Nubes Ecocampus through what we're calling a global classroom. We're bringing these stories and and these documentaries to people around the world and to especially students at our various institutions in Costa Rica that we collaborate with, as well as students at York University. So let me say congratulations to everyone involved with this project. It's an incredibly exciting moment for those involved, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. And I wanted to wish you all a really exciting conversation to come up. And thank you so much. Pura vida.
Thank you so much, Alice. At this time, we would like to direct you to the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to enter your questions for our panelists, or if you need assistance with Zoom, our team is ready to help you. Now, the Grounded project was conceived as a way to overcome the challenges presented by the global pandemic, which prevented us from running our regular international programming. The central idea, as Alice pointed out, was to provide international education, experiential education to York University students by trying to replicate somewhat what we offer through the Las Nubes courses and programs, while maintaining the connections with our Costa Rican partners. To learn more about the Grounded project or Las Nubes, we will share with you later the link on the chat.
Having just finished screening the premiere of More Than Migrants, we are really quite eager to hear from 4 panelists and to hear your thoughts and questions as well. Tonight's panel moderator will be Dr. Matthew Poiré, Associate Professor in the School of Global Health at York University and academic lead for this episode. An Assistant Professor of Social Epidemiology at York University, Dr. Poiré's research ranges from evaluating the impact of international laws to developing health equity metrics and generating policy-relevant research on socially and politically determined inequities in health. Much of this research is in Latin America and the Caribbean. Dr. Poiré has a track record in applied international collaborative quantitative research in the Global South and teaches global health policy and social determinants of health with the York University School of Global Health. Dr. Poiré, would you please turn on your camera, and I will hand this evening's panel and discussion over to you and our guests.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction, Julie. It is now my honor to introduce the 3 panelists who will be joining us for the Q&A session, starting with Dr. Felipe Montoya, who is an environmental anthropologist with over 30 years of experience in applied qualitative research among rural, peasant, and indigenous communities in Costa Rica. Felipe has been a full professor in the School of Anthropology and director of the Development Observatory Research Center at the University of Costa Rica, as well as full professor in the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change and chair in Neotropical Conservation at York University. He's also the director of the Las Nubes project and the director of More Than Migrants. Welcome, Felipe. I will also welcome Douglas Barraza, who is an occupational and environmental health researcher based at the Universidad Nacional Heredia Costa Rica. He is a member of the EcoHealth community of practice for Latin America and the Caribbean, focusing on social and environmental well-being. He also coordinates the Central American Employment and Working Surveys Project and has expertise in issues of migrant work and challenges related to documentation. As part of the Grounded project, Douglas was instrumental in facilitating introductions to community members featured in the film. And finally, I'll welcome Dr. Susana Cachá, who is a registered nurse and migrant health researcher, learning from migrant agricultural workers within the Canadian context for 8 years. She is a co-founder and member of the Migrant Worker Health Expert Working Group, and has also worked with communities in the Guatemalan context to examine the health impacts of extractive industries. She's an assistant professor in the School of Nursing at the University of Western Ontario, and we're very pleased that she's able to join us today. So I will be monitoring the Q&A box for questions from the audience. Please, I do encourage you, if you have any questions, just click on that Q&A button on the bottom and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. But I will start us off with 1 question for each panelist as a moderator, starting with Felipe. So in addition to being the director and primary interviewer for this documentary, you're also an anthropologist. We've had some conversations about themes that emerged from the project, including sense of place and displacement, contradictions of identity, and the concept of rootedness. Can you please speak to some of those themes that stood out to you from an anthropological perspective?
Sure. Thank you, Matthew. The stories of these 9 migrants that we were able to share with you bring some of these issues to the fore in really heartfelt ways, it seems to me. The topic of rootedness, the difficulty of moving from one's a country of birth to a different country for different reasons, political, economic, social reasons, creates difficulties that are, I think, universal stories. We can all feel the stories of these migrants and what they tell us. In a sense, it seems to me that we all have the story of migration in our histories, whether it's our ancestors or our own personal lives. Humanity, I think, is a species that migrates permanently. We're always moving, and it's an expression that we all share. Beyond the universal sense of migration and of being of one place and adapting to another, there's very poignant issues of political situations, legal situations that make life for migrants quite difficult, as we were able to see in this film. The whole travail of getting documents in order to be considered a legitimate person, a legitimate worker, a person with rights. That's just one expression that we found in this film. The issue of discrimination is also ubiquitous in the world, and the story of these migrants is just one example of how migration and migrants around the world need to confront the difficulties that they face. So I think this is a case study of Nicaraguan migrants in Costa Rica, but it speaks to the predicament of migrants around the world, and it's a predicament that I feel is increasingly more and more a front page and important to consider.
Absolutely, and you're already highlighting some of these universal themes that are coming out, and I think we'll be coming back to that. So I'll turn to Douglas next. Not only were your connections to migrant communities in northern Costa Rica critical to the success of the project, but you also bring a deep understanding of occupational and environmental health in Costa Rica and Central America. So what does this documentary tell us about migrant workers' experiences in the Costa Rican context? And how do, for example, mental health and psychosocial factors impact occupational and environmental health?
Yeah, good afternoon in Costa Rica, good evening in Canada. Thank you very much for inviting us to share with you today. Yeah, this is a very good question. Thank you, Matthew. From the occupational health point of view, the migrant workers, it reflects and also tell us that they are part of our economical. It's an earthquake right now here. Oh, kind of something. It's okay. Yeah. If you see that we have to abandon the building, I mean, I'm very sorry, but please.
Yeah. Please be safe first if you need to leave.
Oh, this is part of the life, Wow, it was really strong, eh? Thank you. I'm okay. I'm gonna take a little bit of water.
Okay.
Okay,
We can
yeah.
come back to you in a second if you need.
No, it's okay. It's okay. What I was trying to say is that the migrant workers also, they are part of the informal workers in Costa Rica, which is very high right now. You know, it's almost in Costa Rica we can say that there is almost 45% of our working populations that they are considered informal workers. And what is as an informal worker? An informal worker is that one that doesn't have a social security. You know, at least when you get ill, you can go to the hospital if you have a social security. If you don't have that, just as for the moment, but thinking in the future, you will have also the possibility to get, you know, a pension or retirement fund at the end of your working life. One is also one of the big issues in this moment. And most, as Felipe mentioned, and you know, most of the migrants, they were struggling and they were fighting. They were, you know, working very hard to get the documentation in order, because they know very well that with that they will have at least some money at the end of their working life, which is represent very quickly also the economies or the activities where they work. Mostly they work in agriculture. You see, most of them are working with all the, for instance, in banana plantations, pineapple plantations, plantain plantations, orange, and all others like other tubers that they are working on. So this is and also they are working in a very open space, which leads them, you know, to be exposed to most of the radiation. And maybe in the future they can develop some kind of illness, and say this, they can develop some skin cancer in the future. You know, one of the radiation is an agent, and according to the IARC, is one of those agents that they can, you know, lead to develop cancer. So the documentary is more about that. I mean, tell us we have to scrutinize a little bit more in order to understand much better. And I was talking this afternoon with Oscar Prote, he was the cameraman, and I was telling him that I watched it 2 times already, the documentary, and it's, you know, every time it gives me more information. You know, it's kind of very important things that we are working on. So I think this is most of the things that I'm right now, you know, I have to tell you.
So many issues to unpack that we could write a paper about it, and I think we will. So I will now turn to Susana. So first of all, we're so happy you're able to join us today to help make some connections between some of the issues that were highlighted in the documentary and ongoing issues faced by migrant workers here in Canada and Ontario, many of which have been brought to light by the COVID-19 pandemic. So what parallels can you draw between the experiences of migrants in Costa Rica and migrants in Canada?
Thank you so much. I feel in great company here in terms of, and thank you for this very heartfelt documentary. And especially as somebody who doesn't do work in Costa Rica, it was wonderful to be able to see those, I mean, for those challenges to be documented in such a warm and in a way that kind of invites solidarity. So thank you for that. Absolutely, there are a lot of parallels in terms of the struggles that the individuals in the film, as my colleague mentioned, many of them work in agriculture, right? And I mean, this is a global trend across the world, right? As we continue to want to see that the cost of labor to go down, while we want to keep the food costs low, we are continuing to delegate this work to the racialized poor globally. And I think it really spoke to me how so many individuals in the film talked about wanting to do honest, good work. That to me is incredibly moving, because I think that people do this backbreaking, incredibly dangerous work And they do it with their heart because they do it for their family, and they often risk their health. In the Canadian context, most workers are coming from Mexico or Caribbean countries under bilateral agreements. And more we're seeing individuals coming from Guatemala as well. In the Ontario context, we also see workers from Thailand and Vietnam. And as different as the national context of these countries can seem, what these workers have in common is a national context that invites exploitation because of that disadvantage, right? When somebody is coming, it feels forced to migrate, just as the individuals in the film felt forced to migrate in order to have an economic opportunity. You're not in a position to negotiate usually even still, there's that incredible story, that young man who was talking about joining a union. So we do see stories of strength and resistance, but even still, the average migrant worker, whether in the Canadian context, and it seems in the Costa Rican context, aren't in a position to refuse unsafe work, to negotiate for better conditions, to say, hey, why is my pay not as good? Or when do I get a day off? And these types of issues are really what create just are rife for danger. And in the Canadian context, we know that the migrant workforce was one of the most affected in 2020. And now in 2021, despite an aggressive vaccination campaign with this migrant worker population and a high uptake, let me say, because I think there's a myth that this population is reluctant, but most workers are very, very much eager to be vaccinated. But despite these numbers, we've seen even higher numbers of migrant workers' deaths this year, but they haven't been given the attention they were last year, unfortunately. And I think, to bring it back to a more international context, because I know many of you are here to talk about Nicaraguans and the Costa Rican context, but I think certainly this is an issue that we're seeing, that things like the COVID-19 pandemic tend to magnify the inequities we already know exist and make it that much harder for individuals to access healthcare and to keep themselves safe. Because I think there's this misconception that if somebody is marginalized or if somebody is poor, that perhaps they are less interested in valuing their health. But these are individuals who work with their full bodies. They would love to be able to protect their bodies because that's also their livelihood. But unfortunately, these individuals are often in a position where they have to choose, I think. And that's something that that really resonated with me. And I'm glad, thank you for highlighting that today.
Thank you for those powerful words. So I will now transition us to the Q&A from the audience. If you haven't asked your question yet, please do click on that Q&A button and submit it. But I'll start with the first one that came in. So a commenter says, first of all, congratulations on the film. And they're interested in the history of Nicaragua, where they worked in the 1980s documenting migrant workers, and the history of Costa Rica. So how can this documentary help viewers understand the history of Nicaragua and Costa Rica in the Central American and global context? And what are the forces that pushed these Nicaraguan migrants to move from their own country, and what drew them to Costa Rica? I think probably Douglas is the best person to start with this, but then anyone else can answer.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Since you see then the history, the Nicaraguan history with Costa Rica, we can say that there are three waves, big waves of migrations from Nicaragua to Costa Rica. In the beginning of the 70s, and then we got one of in the beginning of the 80s, just right after the 1979 civil war in Nicaragua, which led to move many people from that country, especially myself with my family. I was a very small one when I moved. Well, I was moved actually from my own country, and then we have another one in in the 2018, you know, and it's more about political issues in the beginning, and then was more economical issues, and it was forced for people because in Nicaragua there is no more job like in Costa Rica, and also the wage, the salaries or wage of people is very low, and life is quite expensive as well in the country, you know, and so this kind of big differences between people is also huge. And they see also that in the documentary people said is the part of that in here they can at least they can have something. They are looking for a better life, actually, you know, and they can, you know, if they work very hard, they will get something. I mean, at the end of the day, they will have a piece of land, they will have at least, you know, a decent house where to live. And on the other hand, when they see, you know, backwards, and they see to their lives in Nicaragua, they see that they are not, even they work very hard, so they won't see anything in return. So it's mostly more or less like that. I don't know if Felipe or Susana have something else to say.
Well, just to add to that, Douglas, a little bit of the historical background that probably most of you know, but Nicaragua had a dictator, the Somoza dynasty, for 40 years, and this was supported by the U.S., which tended to create problems in the country, and then that was the reason of the revolution, the Sandinista revolution, which in '79 toppled the Somoza dynasty. So, and also once the Sandinistas came into power, the U.S. continued to support the counter-revolutionaries, the Contras, and then the country was again divided between Sandinistas and Contras, and there was a civil war, a prolonged civil war, which caused some of these migrants to travel to Costa Rica at that time. Whether they were of one side or the other, in most cases is immaterial. The situation of war was such that they wanted to flee Nicaragua. And the situation of Nicaragua is part of a Central American situation of U.S. intervention and poverty in the countries, and a whole global economy and situation that makes life really difficult for many of the people in Central America. Now we see waves of migrants going to the U.S. seeking a better life there. Some of the waves of the migrants that went to the U.S. from El Salvador, from Honduras in the 80s during the Central American Wars came back to their countries, were repatriated, and with that, difficult conditions of the pandillas, the street gangs that now pervade or are present in Honduras and El Salvador, are also part of the results of these difficulties in Central America.
Yeah, so complicated history for sure. And so I actually want to turn to policy-related questions that came out of the YouTube chat. I'll try to combine two into one addressing the Costa Rican context, the other Canadian. So what government policies can the Costa Rican government implement to integrate these migrant workers into the social fabric of Costa Rica? And is there any political will to do so? Then on the Canadian side, what role can Canada play in influencing better outcomes for the citizens of Central American countries that are fleeing their homes?
Douglas, you want to start with Costa Rica?
Well, I think the Costa Rican government, not only this government, the current government, but also, you know, former governments, they have done I think quite a lot actually, to integrate. One of them has been, one of the interviewers said that he was really sleeping on the street. Actually, he said something like that in order to get the documentation. One of those was the amnesty. They gave an amnesty to people to get the documentation, the proper documentation. So one of the, once you get the residence, the resident permit in Costa Rica, so that you are able to work in the country, you start to do many things. You can have your social security. You can start your bank account or whatsoever. I mean, it's part of being someone. It doesn't mean that you were not someone else before, but for talking about the legal issues, now you can move freely for the country without stopping by the police. Hey, give me your documentation, and you don't have any, so you are, maybe you will be in danger to be expelled from the country. So the government has, not only this government, but let's say the Costa Rican administration has done many things in the past in order to help those people that they are arriving in the country. And not only for Nicaragua, because you cannot say that, okay, now we are going to give the work permit just for Nicaragua. No, it's open to all the other migrants that they came to the country. That is one of those, and the other one is that also working with, for instance, the ambassador said that they were helping, in the north zone of the country with the hospitals and healthcare systems in that area. It's also, related with the governments that they are trying to help some people that they come just across the river and they come to the country for health checking, and then they return to their countries. So there are many, maybe there are more examples about that, and but yeah, I don't know, Felipe, if you got something else.
Yeah, one of the issues that is repeated in the film is the situation of informality as well, informal workers that sell on the streets, and how they're persecuted by the municipal police, and their produce is taken away. It's illegal to do that, but they have no other recourse sometimes. So I think that there should be an exploration of what can be done to formalize them. There should be possibly a type of small commercial license for these type of activities, but yeah, one thing that I can say is that Costa Rica has a pretty open policy towards migrants. Costa Rica has probably, I don't know, between 20 and 25% of our population are Nicaraguans that have been migrants throughout these years. And we, just like Canada, we have a socialized health service, socialized education, and this is open to all the migrants. It's in our, I think, in our constitution that those are human rights, and they all have access to that. In Canada, also with socialized health and medicine, there tends to be more restrictions on immigrants and their access to these in terms of acquiring permanent residency, and the calculations of excessive demand of people that might come with illnesses. So that is something I think that Canada can also learn from Costa Rica in this case.
And if I can throw it to Susanna to address the Canadian policy context.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to weigh in. So, I think it's encouraging to hear what you're saying, Felipe, that, that there's, Costa Rica is perhaps showing a more open policy in terms of migrants. And I think that's something that there's a lot of rhetoric around, Canada's immigration policy, because there is this spirit or discourse around multiculturalism. There's this sense that, oh, well, Canada's migration policy must be pretty open. It must be pretty easy to get to Canada, it must be pretty welcoming. But, you know, I think what people don't realize with you know, the reaction and the criticism of Trump, for example, people weren't realizing that some of the immigration policies that were being proposed have been in Canada for forever, right? And I think the history of the history of Canada, to a large extent, has been creating conditional entry, especially for folks with who are racialized, and that has been, you know, uniquely experienced by the Central American diaspora. And I think, speaking specifically to work, what that communicates at a moral level is that people are only as good as they can contribute to the economy. And, you know, I think this is really tough. You know, I work with a lot of migrant workers who take a lot of pride in what they do. And I think you certainly saw that in the film as well, that people were really hard about their honest labor. And I understand where that comes from, but it also breaks my heart because people shouldn't feel that they need to justify their existence based on their ability to contribute to the economy. People bring so much more than what they can materially bring. You know, thinking about these single mothers and, you know, having to leave their children to do this really difficult and precarious work. So I think that, you know, absolutely Canada can learn from countries like Costa Rica and I mean, and beyond, of course, because as we can see, Costa Rica also presents challenges. But I think something that advocates in the Canadian context have been pushing for is permanent residence upon arrival, because we know that migrant workers, because they can be deported, and that's contingent on their being able to put food on the table, they're that much more likely to accept unsafe work conditions, to be exploited. Employers can take advantage of those things at a systematic level, right? It's not simply, you know, it might not even be intentional, but it's something that a large industry like agriculture can normalize, right? This idea that, oh, well, I can just replace this person with someone else because of that precarious status. So, you know, on the way to permanent residence upon arrival, another really important thing would be to see open work permits. So to be able to see a situation where a worker says, you know what, I don't like how I'm treated on this, at this farm. I'm going to go across the street because I heard that they pay workers better. There isn't that ability to even really informally negotiate among many migrants in the Canadian context. So I think those are policy level changes that could make a big difference. But I think one of the questions maybe had to do, people were asking a little bit about industry practices. So I guess I would also add, we could also see better regulation. And I think that's something that, you know, both Canada and Costa Rica could take up, is what role does the government play in ensuring that people have access to protective equipment, to ensuring that people have training and the ability to collectivize. Those are things that a national government or province can take on as a way to develop mechanisms for migrants to advocate for their health and their safety and their rights.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to turn now to a question that came in Spanish. I'll do a bit of mental translation as I go, but it's about COVID-19, which is the reason why this documentary came about to begin with. The project is grounded because we use a grounded theory approach, but also because we were physically grounded and not able to travel to Costa Rica. So the question's about COVID-19 and it being a syndemic with informality and with other determinants of health and situations of vulnerability that affect health outcomes. And so the question is, how can professionals in social sciences bring solutions to address this syndemic situation? We're all, I think, social scientists. So what can we do to address these issues?
Well, I'll start with a very quick answer. And this is something that we try to do with this documentary, is bring the voices of the people, make them available, so that they can tell us from their point of view, from the ground, what are the difficulties they face. And through a film like this, we can feel their dilemmas that much more closely. And I think, you know, with stories, we can then enact policy changes. But first, we have to hear it from the people themselves.
Yep. Also, I'm sorry, Susanna. Also, one of those of the objectives of this video or documentary was to raise awareness between Costa Rican, because sometimes we do not know very well what is happening, what is going on, you know, with all the people around us. And people said last Friday we have kind of meeting in San Carlos in Universidad Técnica Nacional, and people said, wow, it was very sensitive film. Actually, it was like we really we didn't know many things that they were talking about in the film. And I think we are step by step, if we start to aware people, you know, that what is happening, what is going on, you know, with all the people that are helping us in the fields, you know, they are in the agriculture and other, for instance, in construction, where there are more the migrants are working on. In Costa Rica, it's agriculture and construction. This is more of the people, foreign people are working in. So this is the point. I mean, we're starting to do at least, you know, maybe not too many steps, but you know, we are doing some steps right now.
I guess I don't know if as a nurse, I today I'll be an honorary social scientist, although I do use a lot of social science approaches. So I think that's something that, you know, we as researchers in these fields can do. And you know, I say researchers, you know, we could say scholars, filmmakers, lots of us who are trying to weave stories together in some way. I think that there's so much work that can be done in terms of questioning myths and these kind of just repeated stories that we tell about people, instead of listening to people and allowing those things to transform how we bring policies about or how we treat each other. So one thing that comes to mind for me is I've talked to public health units, I've talked to agriculture, I've talked to federal governments, and sometimes there's a sense that perhaps because these individuals have experienced hardship, of almost like a beggars can't be choosers, right? Like, well, you know, at least they're getting some healthcare here, or I'm sure the conditions are better than what they're used to, or, and I mean, beyond the fact that these things are frankly often not true, right? Like if we take, for example, a Mexican worker may have much better access and quality of healthcare in Mexico than in the Canadian context. But that aside, the idea that because somebody has been disadvantaged, that they're not going to want more or expect more, I think is behind a lot of poor policies that disadvantage the global poor. So I think we have an opportunity to, and I think that the documentary has done that, right? It has shown the ambitions and the hopes that these individuals had for themselves. And I think beyond that, we need to be able to identify issues that are troublesome, but from a place of common humanity instead of pity and condescension, because we do see that a lot in the media. And, you know, for me, I mean, having some cultural similarities to the folks in the video. You know, I was looking at the tips for the different techniques for tortilla making. I was like, oh, I got to try that. I haven't done that before. But I mean, regardless of that, I think that highlighting a life, you know, like to me, the beans on the fireplace, the little things that people do to make their home, you know, I think these are the things that we have to pay attention to alongside the stories of the social determinants of health and the you know, the international policies that are disadvantaging, seeing how those things have a human face, and could be someone that we love or is somebody that we love, I think is really important to how we try to carry out this work in a way that can make a difference.
Well, it's now my unfortunate duty to have to cut short this discussion, which has been amazing. Thank you to all the panelists for all your contributions. And I will actually throw it to Felipe to address the most common question I'm seeing, which is, will there be a sequel? What's coming next?
Well, yes, I'm happy to say that there will be a sequel and several more. So we are already working on the second episode of the Grounded Project series. This second episode will be exploring the role of peasants, what it means to be a peasant in the Anthropocene. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll be looking at family farms in the Brunca region in southern Costa Rica. This is a region that is very diverse biologically and culturally. It has 5 of the 8 different indigenous communities in Costa Rica. So we'll be exploring, what it means to be a peasant, the difficulties they face, and what promises they bring for us in this strange era of the Anthropocene.
As we are coming to the final moments of the webinar, I just wanted to ask if we could just say a thank you to all of our audience that have been attending, and also to ask if Dr. Montoya would be able to just give us your sense on where the Grounded Project is heading.
Sure, thank you, Julie. And of course, yes, thank you to the wonderful audience that has been with us today. It's so gratifying to see that we have people from Canada, from Costa Rica, from Honduras, from Nicaragua, from across the planet. Really, this is a wonderful gift for all of us, for our humble little work that we've done here, and it's really nice to be able to share it with all of you. The Grounded Project, as I mentioned, we are already working on the next episode, but the Grounded Project is based on explorations that are transdisciplinary around issues of rural livelihoods, well-being, socio-ecological sustainability. And we plan to continue working for the next years, creating at least 2 documentaries per year. And at this point, I would, I guess, like to take advantage and invite those of you who might be interested in serving as academic leads to help us establish the focus, the perspectives to look at these different issues related to rural livelihoods, socio-ecological well-being. So it's a project that is based on interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary perspectives, inquiries, and of course, always using the audiovisual methodologies. We hope to make it every time more participatory. Even though this is the premiere, I have to say that we have already we have already screened this with the participants, with the protagonists of this documentary, and they too were very pleased. They told me that it made them think of many things as well. So that for me is a great compliment, that they were happy with how we were able to share their stories. So yes, we have a link that will be shared in the chat so that you can follow us, and be sure to contact us if you're interested in forming part of this Grounded project.
We'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for this evening, for the time and their interest in this very important topic. Thank you to our guest panelists, Dr. Susana Kasha, Dr. Douglas Barraza, Dr. Felipe Montoya, and Dr. Matthew Poiré as the moderator. To our wonderful volunteer Spanish interpreters from the Masters in Conference Interpreting program at Glendon College, Janet and Eliana, for providing their services so we can all share in the conversation. Thank you to all our program partners, Universidad Técnica Nacional in Costa Rica, York University Libraries, York International, the Faculty of Health, the Faculty of Environment and Urban Studies, and for the team in the Department of Advancement Services and Operations who worked so hard to bring this event to life. Finally, we thank you, our guests, this evening for your attention and for all of your time and interest in something we're all very passionate about. We wish you a wonderful evening. Thank you.